Living an extraordinary life. I'm not actually sure if I'm live yet. I think I'm live now. Hello. Hello to anyone that's going to be coming on to chat with me today. I just wanted to come on and, hey, let's make sure that my microphone's working this time. So if anybody wants to comment on that, that would be really awesome. I have a few things to talk about today, and some of those things are questions that were asked of me when I did the last live. So I did request that people put their questions in the comments and that I would answer them at some point, and that point is now. And the same thing goes for this video. If there are questions that you have, I would love to answer them. So before I get into the question and answer portion, I do want to mention that I will probably not be doing No BS Talk lives anymore. I will be doing kind of everything all together on my personal platform. I just have way more connections on my personal platform. I'm sure that there'll be somebody out there that disagrees with that, but I don't actually care. So I want to talk about the podcast that was released this week, last week, and coming up next week. I want to talk about living an extraordinary life. I'm going to answer some questions. And as I said, if you have questions as I go along, please feel free to put them in the comments. I would love to chat with you right here and now. So I'm going to start with the most recent podcast. So every Monday, a podcast is released on No BS Talk. That's KNOW Talk. And please, if my microphone is not working this time, please let me know. I think I've got that figured out, but you never know. So this week, January 4th, I released a podcast that was possibly one of my favorite conversations I have ever had on the podcast. And it was with Marina Brooks. So Marina and her husband, Kip, who I actually interviewed the week before, are a couple that do NLP and hypnosis, and they train people, and they're out of North Carolina. And they're just such a dynamic duo, which happens to be the title of that podcast. And you just have to go listen to it. Like, Marina is such an interesting person that I wasn't even expecting half of the conversations that we had. So it was very, very exciting for me. I love to have great conversations. So the week before, as I said, was her husband, Kip. This coming week is going to be all about realizing our gifts as we receive them. And why this came up is, opportunity is everywhere, people. There's a lot of people complaining about what we've been going through and what we continue to go through. And the fact is that stop paying attention to what we're going through. Yeah, absolutely. We have to be mindful and we have to pay somewhat attention as we go along. But the fact is there's so much opportunity around us, and it's a gift. And I have a bunch of contracts, 3 contracts sitting in my inbox right now that I have to go over, that because I have, pushed forward, figured out how to revamp my life and my business, that I am continually getting opportunity. And the really interesting thing is it's not necessarily even the opportunity I want, but the fact is it's out there. So just be open and let that stuff come to you. Don't be blind to the gifts that this world is offering you as we go. I have a course that is coming out, and that course is called Foundations in Flow, and it is all about getting all of our foundations, our physical, mental, emotional, and even spiritual. And not like super spiritual focused human being. I am within myself, but that's really not what I promote. I promote reduced stress, better sleep, better communication so you can have better relationships, and longevity, which the last video that I did was all about longevity and my view of longevity. And as I said in that video, and I'll repeat it again, longevity for me is not just about living longer, because honestly, that's, it is what it is. I don't have a goal as to how long I'm going to be here, but what I do want is to be healthy the whole time I am here. And I'm 47 years old right now, so it's not like I'm a spring chicken, but I learned a long time ago that you have to take care of yourself every single day. And I walk my walk. I don't take days off of being myself. I don't go, oh, 80-20 rule. It's like, no, freaking take care of yourself every day and stop making excuses. Sorry, a little bit of a soapbox there. Couldn't help myself. I have the mic. Anyway, as I promised, I am going to talk about a little bit about the last video that I did. I said, if you have any questions, please, reach out. And there were some questions that I answered more or less right then and there. And one of the questions that was asked is, when do you advise a couple to break up? And the answer is never. That's never something that I would ever advise. And honestly, it's not something that anybody should advise unless there's like abuse. And really, the topic shouldn't be that the couple should break up. It should be about that person that needs your help. So anyways, my job, as I see it, I'm all about communication, and I'm all about better relationships and enjoying your relationships and having fulfilling relationships. But I'm never going to advise somebody that they should break up, even if everything within me is screaming that, because you know what? At the end of the day, my opinion on your life is irrelevant. I will give you the tools so that you can make decisions yourself, but I'm not here to advise stuff like that. As I said, if you guys have any questions, comments, cries of outrage as we go, please put them in the comments. So I did say that I would answer questions that people put in the comments from the last video. And one of the questions was how to tell when you're in an unhealthy relationship. And instantly my thought was, if you're asking, it's probably not a great relationship. If you have to ask, am I in an unhealthy relationship? Again, there is something amiss in that situation. So now that's where the generalities, is that a word? Let's make it a word today. That's when I have to stop generalizing. How's that? Because every single situation is very different. And without talking to somebody, it's next to impossible for me to gauge what, the issue might possibly be, or even ask the right questions so that you can tell what the issue is. But when I'm talking about unhealthy relationships, obviously there's something amiss in that relationship or you wouldn't be asking the question. Now, that something amiss could be unclear communication, or possibly, this is still unclear communication, but I don't know about you guys, but within the first conversation, when you go on your first date, that person generally tells you so much about themselves. But there's so many of us, and I have fallen prey to this myself, that you're like, yeah, that was you in the past, but you have potential. Don't fall in love with potential. Don't even take step 2 when there's potential and you're not seeing the actual human that's in front of you. So sometimes the person has been very clear with what they're looking for or what they're capable of in that moment or in that relationship, and you're like, yeah, but they'll change. Even if they could change, stop focusing on the possibility of change. Now, then there's things like possibly that somebody, that other person, if we leap to the extreme, there could be abuse, whether it's mental, emotional, or physical abuse, unhealthy relationship. And like I said, I'm not going to advise you to leave, but I really caution you to pay attention to where you're making excuses for that other person or for yourself. Maybe you're not treating that person terribly well, and maybe it's time to leave that relationship, and you're just, holding on. This is a great topic, actually. Maybe you're just holding on because of familiarity. So the human mind loves things that are familiar, and familiar is not always healthy. So just remember that. Just because something feels comfortable, I do a whole talk on being comfortable in our discomfort. so often as humans, we're like, well, this is my norm. This is my baseline. I'm okay here. And that doesn't make it healthy. That doesn't make it okay. So just remembering that familiarity is not always a good thing. So I was actually on, first of all, I was on a radio show yesterday. It was called Teen Wealth. If you're interested to see what I had to say to teens, or if you have teens or you are a teen, please go listen to that. It's called Teen Wealth, and it's Brandy England is the host of that show. It's on Voice America, but by now it'll be on every podcast platform you could possibly ever want to find it on. So I talk a lot about relationships in that one, more the parent-child dynamic than romantic relationships, and I'm kind of swaying into romantic relationships here. So anyways, previously, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I was on a podcast called Modern Sex Talks. And thank you to Ryan, the host of that show, because I've gotten so many clients off of that show. People are still finding me now. I have no idea how they're even finding that podcast. Ryan doesn't even do it anymore. Anyway, on that show, the whole basis of my being on that show was talking about why we gravitate to unhealthy relationships and certain relationships. And in my practice, I have found overwhelmingly, and I'm sure that other people out there that work in communication and relationships have found the same thing, that we enter relationships over and over and over again because A, a sense of familiarity, and B, we're actually trying to reenact destructive relationships that we had with our parents and sometimes siblings or grandparents, depending on who your major role models were. And I married my mother. There's no question I married my mother. And then almost married her again, actually. That's another total different story a few years back. But I spent a lot of time dating my father. And see, my father was very emotionally withheld. So I go into, thanks, Josh. I go into relationships and this person is very withheld. They're not there, you can't tell what they're thinking or feeling. And my familiarity gene says, oh, that's normal. You can figure this out. You can work with this. And you're really strongly attracted to that person that you subconsciously feel you can solve your childhood wounds with. The really cool thing is that you actually can solve your childhood wounds this way. It takes a willing participant. It takes two people that are really freaking aware of themselves. I can absolutely help you and put you through a process to figure out specifically what those childhood wounds are. Now, I've been through this process, so I am well aware what my childhood wounds are and what I'm looking for. There is many schools of thought out there that we're not supposed to need things, and that it's being codependent to go into relationships with having a need. But it is a fact that as humans, we need other humans, and we do subconsciously or otherwise go into relationships looking to solve these things. Now, when I talk about childhood issues, I'm not talking about like very specific issues. But for example, one of my issues, this is like totally therapy session for me apparently today. One of my issues is I desperately need to be seen as a whole person. And what I mean by that is, this is going to sound possibly a little egotistical, and I don't mean it to be, and it's not about that, but people are physically attracted to me. I keep myself in good shape and I present myself well every day. So people are physically attracted to me. But holy crap, do I have a lot to say? Like, I am not an idiot. I have a really good head on my shoulders, and I do life well in every respect. So when somebody comes into my orbit and they're just like, you're pretty, it's like, no, you need to see me as a whole human. So that is something that I'm constantly looking for in my relationships, and all of my relationships, not just romantic, but especially romantic. I don't want to be with somebody who's just one-dimensional and just sees me like as something to look at. I want to be with somebody who actually knows that I've got more to offer than that. So anyways, come on, guys, ask me some questions. I want to answer some questions. So if you have any questions, that'd be awesome. One of the other comments, I suppose, on that video was, I can't remember how it was worded, but I have no love in my life is something that I wrote down. And their comment reminded me of something that I read. And I don't know if you've heard of the Sedona method. It is a type of coaching. And the founder of the Sedona method apparently founded this method because he was in his good gracious, he was middle-aged, and he was kind of reflecting on his life. And he's like, I don't have anybody in my life to love. I don't have anybody around me to love. And then he realized that that was just absolutely a lie, that he had people that he could reach out to at any point in time, and they would be more than happy to spend time with him. A couple of these women in his life would actually be in a relationship with him in a heartbeat, but they weren't who he was looking for, and he wasn't giving them love. Therefore, he wasn't feeling love. And I often caution my clients when they're not feeling loved that love is actually a verb. And the more love we can give, and you can give love to anybody, anytime. I can give love to somebody that I meet in a grocery store because it is a verb. I'm not going to run out of it. As a matter of fact, the more you practice leading with love and giving love, the more you have within you, the more abundance you have. So please understand that when you are feeling like you don't have love in your life, it's possibly because you've closed down to it for whatever reason. I'd love to support you with figuring that reason out, but maybe you already know the reason. I did a video just before Halloween. If you want to go check it out, it's called Vampires and Other Things That Suck. And I talk about emotional vampires. And I actually caution people to stop believing that theory that there's these emotional vampires out there that are going to take your energy. And the fact is that what happens is we have energy flowing through us constantly. And when something bothers us, we actually close to it. So for example, if somebody says something that I don't like, or that scares me or whatever, I actually get a physical reaction. I feel it in a very physical way that I kind of close inward, and you can actually feel that valve of your energy shutting off. But that's your choice. So if you're around somebody that you perceive as an energy vampire, try this next time. That person that just drains you. Possibly they talk about things you don't like or whatever the case may be, but again, it's your choice to go, oh, I don't like that. Instead of going, hey, can we change the subject? Possibly, that's not really a healthy topic for me. So, and as you're doing that, just freaking physically round your shoulders back and open your energy up again. You can actually do that. You can practice it right now. Maybe you don't like the fact that I said it's your fault and it's not an energy vampire. And you're like, oh, no, I don't like that. I want to blame somebody else. Let me blame somebody else. No, you don't get to blame somebody else. Take a deep breath, round your shoulders back, and realize that you actually get to change the trajectory of that conversation if you choose to, but you have to choose to. Now, that doesn't mean that you want everyone in your orbit to like come in and just hang out there. There are negative people and you don't need them in your world. But again, that's a choice that you're making as well. So sometimes, you work with this person. If you work with this person and you have to spend time with them, then again, it is your choice to say, hey, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want that in my energy, whatever it is, whatever words you want to use. Fear of intimacy. So, that's an interesting one. Okay, so I mention this book all the time, and it's called The Untethered Soul, and it's Michael Singer. And I don't actually know if he words it fear of intimacy per se, but it's the same thing. It's your energy flow. You're shutting it off. And what he talks about in the book, and it's a really, really good analogy. And arguably, I used to have a fear of intimacy. Fear of intimacy is actually the way that I perceive it anyways. And again, I'm generalizing because I don't know the exact situation. But when we have a fear of intimacy, that fear is us being seen for our true selves. And when we have a fear of intimacy, somewhere along the line, we were told that who we truly are, who we present ourselves to be, is not right or not good enough. And that is complete BS. You are exactly who you're meant to be. And when I work with clients, one of the first things I tell them is, I'm not here to change who you are. I'm here to help you let go of who you're not. And I know that sounds like a catchphrase, and it is a catchphrase, but it's also freaking true. I'm not here to change people. I'm here to help you kind of dig through the crap of other people's beliefs and other people's information so you can figure out who you are. And once you actually are really good with who you are and believe that who you are is exactly who you're meant to be, you will not have a fear of intimacy. So as I'm going to go back to the book, The Untethered Soul. In that book, Michael Singer talks about like you have a thorn in your heart. And that thorn is, you don't want people to touch that. You don't want people to see that piece of you, whatever that piece of you is, that vulnerability piece of you. So you've got this thorn in your heart, which, if people get too close to it, it hurts. Like it's like having a sliver, right? So if people get close to the sliver, so you're like, you gotta like keep your hand over here. You don't want to keep your heart over here. You don't want to keep your vulnerability over here. And then some people go, well, I've dealt with that. And what they've done is they've actually built a cage around it. And you'll recognize these people because they keep that smile on their face. They don't ever say when they're uncomfortable. They don't ever say what, if something's wrong with them. They just keep on smiling. And then all of a sudden, they lose their crap. And maybe for them, it's anger, sadness, whatever the case is. If you don't actually incrementally say, I'm not okay with this, or hey, how about we do this, or open up those channels of conversation, you are going to snap at some point if you want to actually continue along that relationship, because something is touching that thorn. And if you're not willing and able to communicate about that thorn, you're just going to be rubbed the wrong way sooner or later. Does that help anybody with the fear of intimacy conversation? If you have any questions about that, just let me know. What else did I want to talk about today? I think that was kind of all I wanted to talk about. I did mention living an extraordinary life at some point today. So living an extraordinary life, it is 2021 now. And 2021 is a number 5 universal year. There's some numerology for you. And number 5 is all about freedom. And it is all about being the visionary. And it's all about living an extraordinary life. So I, hardcore, believe that I am here to live an extraordinary life. And I do. I already live an extraordinary life. And the really cool thing is, if you guys looking at my life, you might go, oh, I don't want that life. Yay, because it wouldn't be extraordinary if everyone wanted it. And you need to live your extraordinary life, not my extraordinary life. My advice, if I could give some advice, is to figure out exactly who you were meant to be. Again, before everybody else's information, belief systems, BS of all sorts came in and told you who you should be instead of who you are. On the podcast yesterday, or the radio show yesterday with Brandy England, Teen Wealth, I talked about how inadvertently parents believe that it is their job to guide you. But what they do is they try and guide you in the way that they wanted to live their lives. And that's not necessarily how you want to live your life. Now, full disclosure, I am not a parent, but it is my belief, and when I'm working with clients, that it's my belief that parents are here, yes, to make sure that there's guardrails so you don't kind of like go into crazy zones, but here to explore who you truly are. Now, some of you are already adults and they're like, okay, so that didn't happen for me. What do I do about it now? You know what? You've still got that, I call it the inner child, but you still have that original being inside of you, likely that's like constantly trying to reach out for attention, going, hey, remember me? I still have wants and needs. So you still have wants and needs just like when you were a child. And part of those wants and needs are to be seen and heard for your true, unique self. So figure out who that true, unique self is and start living that life. And I don't mean I'm going to try and live that life. I'm going to practice living that life. I mean, you're here right now. Be here right now. See, now was a minute ago, second ago. Now is over here. Don't freaking try to live a better life. Don't try and make changes. Make freaking changes. It's really simple, actually. It's just scary as hell. So again, if you need my support on that, I would love to support you. I don't even think I've said Julieturner.ca this video. My goodness, how did that happen? If you've been watching and you have comments or you'd like to reach out to me personally, I would love to hear from you. If you would like to do I call it a strategy session. I'm telling you guys that because if you click on my link, that's one of the options, is strategy session. If you would like to just do a session with me and maybe reduce your stress, learn how to communicate better, I would love to do that for you. Is there any other questions before I wrap up today? I haven't been scrolling. I should probably scroll. If there's no other questions, thank you guys so much for your time today. I'd like to tell you when I'm going to be on here next, but I honestly don't know because I did a live on Sunday and I had a lot of people viewing it as I was on. I realized that it's the middle of the day right now and maybe not an ideal time for you guys to comment or be on a live. I apologize. Sorry, not sorry. I might come on next Sunday. Who knows? I guess time will tell. Thank you, Julieturner.ca. You guys have been awesome. Look forward to seeing you soon. Bye for now.